you the ability to go back and look at them afterwards. So what we're going to do is just remind everybody that there's lots of exam prep that you can do and some helpful guidelines. Certainly the official basketball rules are something that I would spend some time with, but I would really key on the official basketball rules interpretations, otherwise known as AUBRI. That material is available through a number of sources. It's on Canada Basketball's website. Many provincial websites have it, but it's available and free on FIBA.com to anybody that wants it. There's also a document that is the 2024 rule changes that is available in the FIBA IREF Academy library. And I would encourage everybody that's on the call to add the FIBA IREF Academy library, add the app to your phone. It's a great resource. There's material on 3PO mechanics, advanced and basic interpretations or basic terminology for basketball, all sorts of excellent resources there. The latest one that's published is called Improve Your Whistle Timing, and spend some time talking about the difference between an immediate whistle, a quick whistle, a patient whistle, and a cadence whistle, and is an excellent resource. I would also encourage you to use old exams and particularly the missed questions. So this webinar will look at the questions that were the 5 poorest answered questions last year. So we're going to get into it. As I'll remind everybody as we go through, the slides are text heavy. They break every rule of a PowerPoint, but it's purposeful, as I say, that you can go back and watch the webinar. And I'll just ask you to think about the questions we go and answer it, and then we'll discuss not only the answer, but why. So question 21 was the 5th most missed question last year. And the question was, A1 is dribbling towards the team B basket and charges into B1, who is standing with one foot touching the no charge semicircle. The contact occurs on B1's torso. The referee calls a team control foul on A1. Is this correct? I'll let everybody think about it for a minute. And of course, the answer is yes. And the references are a very specific example and interpretation in the AUBRI 33.3 and the rule 33.10. The key here is that the no charge circle or the no charge circle rule that indicates that we cannot have a charge only applies to an airborne player. So if the contact was caused by an airborne offensive player with a defensive player inside the no charge circle, that shall not be called a team control foul. But in our case, A1 is a dribbler. He is on the floor. We do recognize that when it says that B1 has 1 foot touching the no charge semicircle, that means by rule, they are in the semicircle. That the line is part of the semicircle. So anything touching the line or inside, they're inside the circle. But in this case, the player is on the floor, so team control would be called. Question 36. B1 fouls A1 on a successful 2-point field goal. A1 is then assessed a technical foul. The referee awards 1 free throw to any team B player, followed by 1 free throw for A1. Is this correct? The answer, of course, is no. And this is because of Article 42, our special situations, fouls and special situations. And our primary rule with fouls and special situations is we always cancel equal penalties. And in this case, B1 has fouled A1, successful field goal, so the penalty is 1 free throw for A1. When A1 is then assessed a technical foul, this would be 1 free throw for any Team B player. So therefore, those penalties of 1 and 1 cancel, and the game would be resumed with a throw-in for, in this case, Team B that was scored against. This is an interesting situation, and I can tell you that not only was the question missed by a lot of people on the exam last year, this is a play that when it happens, our referees regularly miss it on the floor and actually don't recognize the situation. When we think about fouls in special situations, we're always comparing 2 free throws and 2 free throws, or maybe 2 free throws in possession to 2 free throws in possession, but it's all equal penalties on teams, and all double foul penalties shall be canceled in the order in which they were committed. So in this case, we would cancel the penalties and resume the game from the point it was interrupted. Our third most missed question was one of our multiple choice questions. And this is another area that I would say that we're probably fairly weak on across the country, but with good reason. Because we don't have a lot of fights in our game. We don't have a lot of alterations in our game, and that's a very positive thing. However, if we're going to run the game and take care of business, we do need to understand how we will address these situations. So question 50 was, A1 and B1 start a fight on the court in the Team B backcourt. The Team A manager enters the court and participates in the fight. And the question was, how shall play be resumed? There were 3 potential answers, but let's walk through the question and see what we can eliminate. So first off, A1 and B1 will both be charged with disqualifying fouls. They will be disqualified from the game, but the penalties for those 2 disqualifying fouls will, of course, offset. When any bench personnel enters the floor any bench personnel enters the floor in a situation where there is a fight or something that may lead to a fight, that will result in a technical foul charged to the head coach. It's a B2 technical foul. So we know immediately that we at least have 2 free throws for Team B. But because the Team A manager in this case participates in the fight, that is a disqualifying foul on the Team A manager. So that means we will have at least 4 free throws in this scenario. So when we look at the answer, the correct answer is that 4 free throws for any Team B player, the technical foul on the head coach, plus the 2 free throws and penalty, 2 free throws in possession for the disqualification of the Team A manager. So that will result in 4 free throws for any Team B player. There could be 2 different Team B players shoot those free throws. One player could shoot the technical foul, the 2 free throws, and one player could shoot the 2 free throws for the disqualifying foul, or one player may shoot all 4, and then we'll resume the game with a throw-in for Team B from the front court throw-in line opposite, with 14 seconds remaining on the clock. In this case, if we'd had 7 individuals come off of the bench, we would still only have 1 technical foul on the head coach, and then a disqualifying foul for anyone that participated in the fight on the floor. So this type of question, just go through it slowly and break the situations down. This was an interesting play, or an interesting question that was missed, the second most missed question on the exam last year, and a little surprising actually, because this is a specific play situation in the Aubrey, and there's a very good reason for it. So question 42 was, during A1's final free throw, while the ball is above the level of the ring, but before the ball has touched the ring, B1 reaches through the basket from below and touches the ball. The referee counts the free throw, and awards 1 point to A1 and resumes play with a Team B throw-in on the end line. The question was, is this correct? The answer is, of course, no, because the question does not address all the penalties that will apply in this case. So let's look at our question. So during A1's final free throw, the ball is above the level of the ring, but before it's touched the ring. So it's still a free throw because it's a free throw, does not end until the ball touches the basket. And B1 reaches through the basket from below and touches the ball. So this is a goaltending because goaltending restrictions apply until the ball has touched the ring. And there's an additional part to the rule, which is if the violation is committed by a defensive player during a last free throw, 1 point shall be awarded to the offensive team for the goaltending violation, followed by a technical foul penalty charged against the defensive player. The reason this rule exists, of course, is to prevent a team from making a mockery of the game. We may have a close game down the stretch where the defensive team is willing to give up the single point for the free throw because they want a clock stoppage where they can call a timeout and advance it to the front court to perhaps run a play for a shot to win the game, or for any other reason that they wish the clock to be stopped. They will purposely commit the goaltending violation that makes a mockery of the game. And so therefore we have a rule that penalizes this with a technical foul added on. Let's look at the last of our 5 questions. B2 fouls dribbler A5. This is the 6th team foul in the quarter. A1 then throws the ball directly at B2's head. The referee charges B2 with a personal foul and A5 with a disqualifying foul. How shall play be resumed? And of course, this was a multiple choice with 3 choices. So let's break it down. First off, we know that the foul by B2 on dribbler A5, being the 6th foul of the quarter, results in 2 free throws. Those 2 free throws would be shot by A5. However, A5 has been charged with a disqualifying foul for throwing the ball directly at B2's head, which is a correct interpretation. Anytime an opponent throws a ball at an opponent's head, it should be a disqualifying foul. So that penalty is 2 free throws and possession. We know that 2 does not equal 2 in possession. We never cancel part penalties. So we're going to shoot 2 free throws followed by 2 free throws and possession. However, the question becomes who can shoot. Because A5 is disqualified, their substitute will shoot those 2 free throws, which will be followed by any Team B player shooting 2 free throws and possession at the throw-in line in the front court. So the correct answer was B. A5 substitute shoots 2 free throws, and any Team B player shoots 2 free throws, and a Team B throw-in in the front in the throw-in line in the front court with 14 seconds on the shot clock. And the key here is understanding that we never cancel partial penalties. So 2 does not equal 2 plus possession. We would never eliminate just the 2 free throws and have the possession. We either cancel the whole penalty or the penalty remains. Okay, I'm just going to pause there for a minute, Dave, in case there's anything that you think we should address or any questions that have come up on those particular cases before we spend 15 or 20 minutes looking at the key rule changes from last year and the type of things that are typically on the exam as we prepare in the second year of a rule set.
Nothing in the chat, Mike. So
Okay,
we can move on.
I will carry on. So we'll look at some play cases involving 2024 rule changes.
On
And
the
our
other
key
side,
and our key rule changes from last year were Article 17, in which we introduced the bench side throw-in lines. Interestingly enough, I think this proved to be a very effective new rule, particularly around the world. I know in Canada, we had great trouble getting the throwing lines on the floor. That's a different issue, but I think it was quite helpful. And it was very interesting to me to watch teams run plays from the throwing line in front of the benches. We added language in the goaltending and basket interference rule, new language to introduce the concept of an unnatural bounce or the ball changing direction. This rule has not been overly well handled around the world. I was at the FIBA AmeriCup in Managua, Nicaragua in August and one day in September, and we had 4 or 5 calls there that were made where a player merely touched the backboard, but certainly did not cause the ball to take an unnatural bounce, and goaltending was still called. We had eliminated what was our unsportsmanlike foul C5 and introduced a personal foul in the last 2 minutes as a throw-in foul. My observations were that this rule was not well understood across the country, so we'll have a look at that tonight. And we introduced the concept of a fake and foul on the same play. And I would say that this was definitely an area of weakness in our refereeing across the country last year. Quite a change to the correctable error rule. It was expanded. It was actually, at the end of the day, made much easier to follow. And I saw some situations last year where we were able to correct some errors that really created equity, fairness, and balance in the game. And of course, quickly, a new pass-off signal on a player in the act of shooting. So again, as I said at the beginning, I apologize. These slides are incredibly wordy. I really want you to not worry about the words on the slides. Just be aware that this is something you can go back and look at. And I've highlighted particular pages that you may want to look at to better understand the rule. So this was a slide that we used last year to introduce this rule. I apologize. I just need to change my own view on my screen. There we go. So we introduced a throw-in line on the table side or the bench side. And what we've introduced is after a timeout in the last 2 minutes of the game, if there's a backcourt throw-in, we know the team receiving the ball with a backcourt throw-in after the timeout, if they've called the timeout, may elect to move the ball to the front court. And we have 3 different scenarios. If the backcourt throw-in is after a valid basket and the head coach decides to move it to the front court, by rule, they may choose which side the throw-in is on. So if it's after a valid basket, which would include a field goal or a free throw, they have a choice.
You have everything you need?
They would have a choice as to which side of the court they can have the throw-in from. However, if the game is stopped and the timeout is called after, and the throw-in is for a foul or a violation, and they elect to move it to the front court, the throw-in must be on the same side of the court as the designated backcourt throw-in spot. I think this logically makes sense for people if the ball's on the sideline. So if it's on the sideline opposite the benches, then that's the spot of the throwing line in the front court that they can go in, would be the opposite of the benches. If it's on the same sideline as the benches, after a foul or a violation, they can only move it to the throw-in line on that side of the court. In terms of a throw-in on the end line, if it's after a foul or a violation, we know, of course, that we never have a throw-in within the area of the restricted area, or particularly not within the area of the old, smaller restricted area. And so we would be on one side or the other. So we split the court down the middle as per the orange line on the slide. And if it was going to be an end line throw in on the portion of the court that's opposite, we have to go to that side. If it's going to be an end line throw in on the portion of the court on the table side, we must go to the table side. And this is something that I hope across the country we actually do a bit of better job refereeing this particular play. I'm not going to spend much more time on this concept. I think the previous slide allowed us to think about it. But if you get an exam question on it, it's as simple as that. If it's after a good basket or a free throw, then they have a choice. If it's after a foul or a violation, then the throw-in shall take place from the throwing line on the same side of the court. We do note that if the throw-in is after an unsportsmanlike foul or a disqualifying foul as a result of a fight or otherwise in the game, then the throw-in would be on the front court throw-in line opposite the scorer's table. So those are our three choices, and I would encourage you to just go slowly through these questions as you go. Let's
Mike,
look at one. Yes.
We got a really good question about this. I think, does the coach have to request to move to the front court, or is it the official's responsibility to ask the coach?
So it is the official's responsibility to ask the coach. When the timeout ends, the crew chief should merely go to the coach and say, where would you like the throw in from? Now, it doesn't have to be specifically those words. The question could be, do you want a backcourt or front court throw in? Okay. Just some communication where the referee on a three-man crew, the crew chief, goes to the head coach and determines where the throw-in should come from. This is, of course, done after the timeout, at the end of the timeout, not before. And once the decision is made, it can't be changed.
Okay, thank you, because that answers the next question that George asked. Do we ask the head coach at 40 or 50 seconds? But you already answered that at the end of the timeout. That's when we ask.
Correct. And in this question of 40 or 50, we can consider 50. We can consider 50 the end of the timeout. I'll expand a little bit, Dave. If the opponent then decides to call a timeout, which they can, the decision on where the throw-in is going to be made is already been made and is over and can't be changed. It can't be changed as a result of that new timeout. The team that is getting the throw-in has made the decision, and that's where the throw-in shall be. That team themselves could even call a second timeout in a row, but once they've made the decision as to where the throw-in is, that's where it is. Okay.
Thank you. That's good stuff.
Yeah, and it's something we struggle with, Dave, and we struggle with it because I think we all exist in this world that I call the world of the nice Canadian, and that is the world that we're always willing to be conciliatory and try and work with people and try and help them get to a particular spot and in fact solve their problem. But it is important to be fair to both teams, that we execute this the same way all the time in all games. Real fast, let's look only at 17-51 here, but these are the two play situations that cover the situation. So in 17-51, A1 in the act of shooting commits a traveling violation, and then the ball enters the basket. A1's goal should not count. We know that because the ball went in the basket, that we would have a throw-in from the free throw line extended in the backcourt. And that throw-in should be on the same side of the court as where the traveling violation occurred. If we then have a timeout and the team wishes to advance the ball to the front court because we're in the last 2 minutes of the game, then that throw-in would remain on that same side of the floor. I use this example because I think in Canada, we've often struggled, and I did. I got it wrong all the time. I would always take a throw in to the opposite side of the court when we had a basket and we were canceling a basket. But we do know that by rule, the throw in actually goes to the side of the court where the actual violation or the action that results in the canceled basket comes from. I'm just going to touch base on goaltending and basket interference and the new language that we introduced. The new language appears in 31-18. And what we said was that a player who causes who makes contact with the basket or the backboard and causes the basket to vibrate, for it to be a violation, it must be in such a way that it causes the ball to take an unnatural bounce or to change direction, thus either preventing the ball from entering the basket or causing the ball to go into the basket. So often we've become of the habit that a player will jump to block a shot and they will strike the backboard, and there may be a small shimmy, a small violation on it, and we immediately have referees blowing the whistle, calling a basket interference and counting a basket. We know from lots of study that that actual contact generally has no impact on the ball. So for it to be a violation, it must cause the action of the vibration must cause the ball to take an unnatural bounce or to change direction. And the result is that either if the contact is made by the defense, that the ball is prevented from entering the basket, or if the contact is made by the offense, that contact causes the ball to enter the basket. So when you're working on the exam and going through, we're looking for very specific language to determine if a violation has occurred. And for about the 11th time, that language is an unnatural bounce, a ball that changes direction and is either prevented from entering the basket or caused to enter the basket. Different, of course, if the ball is actually on the ring when that contact occurs. That is, by rule, a goaltending, and we would either count the basket if it's defense or cancel the basket if it was the offense that made the contact. But for a ball that's bouncing above. Dave, you look like you've got a question.
I do. I've got a couple of things that I would like to address. Just if in the chat, could we have, if we do have a question, could we refrain from answering the question for the person? Let's have Mike answer the question, just so that we make sure that we get the correct answer. Okay. So the question was, and I don't know if we can really answer this, but some people are asking, like, what is an unnatural bounce, right? Like, I don't think, yeah. So,
well, so an unnatural bounce would really be the unnatural bounce is something that you're just not going to see on a normal shot, so that you know that contact of the basket or the backboard and that vibration causes that ball to either change direction by spin because of the way it strikes the ring, or to go in a different direction as a result of that vibration.
Right.
And so really these words should be taken that we're really looking for something that is obvious, that contact caused a change that just is completely unnatural.
Right. Perfect. That's great. That's a great explanation. Thanks, Mike.
Okay. I'm just gonna bounce to our throw-in foul. We introduced this rule primarily because our old C5, a foul in the last 2 minutes when the ball was still in the hands of the referee or the inbounder. We had eliminated that play around the world. And we were finding that the penalty was perhaps too harsh. So what was introduced was the concept of a throw-in foul, and I'm actually going to use the example to describe it. So with 51 seconds on the game clock in the fourth quarter, so in other words, the last 2 minutes of the game, so from 2:00 of the fourth quarter to the end, if thrower in A1 has the ball in their hands, when a defensive player, B2, contacts an offensive player in a different area of the court, and the referees determine that that contact is a foul, we will have what's called a throw-in foul. So in this case, B2 is charged with a foul against A2. So unless this contact meets the criteria of an unsportsmanlike foul, so in other words, unless it's not a legitimate attempt to play the ball, or it's excessive hard, so we're looking at impact follow through, then this foul is by definition a throw-in foul, and it results in a penalty of one free throw and possession at the spot nearest to where the foul occurred. So the player that is fouled will attempt one free throw, one throw in with no lineup, and the game shall be resumed with a teammate throw in from the place nearest to where B2's foul occurred. So we have a number of people that will say, well, this means it's one free throw plus possession. Well, no, it's not, because remember, this foul can only occur when the thrower in has the ball in their hand or the referee still has the ball. So we're in the last 2 minutes, so if we're after basket and we have an inline throw in, we don't have the clock running. At any other time, we don't have the clock running. So we don't take the possession away from the team that has it. They keep possession, but we merely stop the game. We have one free throw for that foul, but we do move the ball to the point nearest to where the foul occurred. Lots of situations that we don't recognize this play in the game, but when you see the exam question, the keys here are, is the ball in the thrower-in's hands or the referee's hands? And of course, one free throw and a throw-in from the place nearest to where the foul occurred. Dave.
Yes, couple of questions here, and I think pretty easy ones. What if it's penalty? Does that have any effect on the?
No. If it is penalty, it has no effect. This is a special case with a special line in Article 34 to address it, and the penalty will always be one free throw and then the throw in at the place nearest to where the foul was.
Another question, just that they have, is a throw-in foul considered a technical foul?
No, absolutely not.
Right.
So Article 34, when we introduced this, when we went looking to where it was, we put it in Article 34, which is personal foul. So the actual rule, the actual language is right in the Article 34 around personal fouls. So this is a personal foul. It certainly counts towards one of the 5 player fouls that an individual player may receive, but it is not a technical foul. It is not an unsportsmanlike foul, and penalty does not change the result. This foul comes with its own unique penalty.
Okay. A couple of really good questions that I have. Is there a signal for this? Does FIBA have a signal?
No.
Okay.
So it is just verbally addressed. But of course, when you call the foul, you're going to immediately indicate one with one finger. So while it's not an official signal, that is the way it would be communicated from a signal. But here in Canada, we're fortunate that with 2 official languages, we should be able to use our voice and have verbal support every time we blow our whistle. And there is absolutely no harm that if we blow our whistle on that point, we indicate throw in foul, one shot.
And this, does this count as a team foul?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Again, it counts as a team foul because it is within Article 34 personal foul, and all personal fouls count as team fouls.
Okay. Um, if the offensive team, if we have an offensive foul in the last 2 minutes, does the same thing apply?
No, a throw-in foul is only the situation where the defense makes illegal contact with one of the four offensive players who are on the floor, on the court, I apologize, on the court to accept the throw in. So an offensive foul, no. An offensive foul in this case would be the same as any other team control foul, just result in a change of possession.
Right. Um, and I think this is a pretty easy one to ask because I think your answer, you already addressed it. So the throw-in foul, so if a throw-in foul occurs, well, the ball is in the hand of the official or
Yep.
a throw-in, why is it not a UF? Um, because there is no play in the ball and typically players foul, grab, hold. I think you addressed that with whether, if it was an offensive foul, but maybe you could go
Yeah.
over, or sorry, unsportsmanlike foul. Maybe if you
So
could go over that again.
sure, I will. Um, with all due respect to the person that's asking the question, um, I think the question has an assumption in it, which is there's not a legitimate play on the ball. And of course, our C1 unsportsmanlike foul, which is not a legitimate attempt to play the ball or the player, um, we must remember that what that really means is a non-basketball play. And certainly there are plenty of situations you can imagine a throw in a pressure situation where a player cuts and the defender may be chasing the player who cuts or is trying to direct the player who cuts in a different direction. And there may be contact there. And that contact is part of a legitimate play in the game of basketball. Certainly, if we have a situation where the ball's in the hands of the thrower in and an opponent merely goes, and I'm going to say bear hugs an opponent, that situation would rise to an unsportsmanlike foul C1. But there are lots of situations where there are legitimate basketball plays where a player is merely trying to play defense, perhaps step in front of a player, causing them to take a different direction, perhaps stepping in front of them, giving them time and distance, and setting up for a blocking type situation, or a situation where there's a screen and somebody is fighting over a screen. There's lots of legitimate plays on that throw in late in the game that are very much basketball plays, normal actions that would not rise to an unsportsmanlike foul. So I don't think we can make an assumption that every time there's a foul committed when the ball's in the hands of a thrower in, it would be unsportsmanlike or not a legitimate attempt to play in the ball, because we would have to expand that to the entire 40 minutes of the game, not just the last 2 minutes.
All right.
Dave, you
Excellent.
can tell me if I just confused 116 people on the call.
Yeah, I think no. You know what? There's all kinds of unique situations. I think we do have a few questions. I have a really good one just back on the advancement of the ball in the
Sure.
last 2 minutes. Um, so just before we carry on to the next thing, maybe we could address this. So the coach calls a timeout in the last 2 minutes or under 2 minutes, and
Yep.
immediately tells the crew that they want to advance the ball immediately. First question, that's locked in. We can't change
Nope.
that. Okay.
No,
All
No,
right.
because the requirement is to for the referee to ask and get the decision from the coach at the end of the timeout.
Okay.
So basically, as a crew, I would just choose to ignore that.
Hmm.
And if it's done in a manner that is intending to fool the other team, you just remind the other team that the decision will be made at the end of the timeout.
So your answer there really answers the next part of the question, is that if everybody heard that sort of protocol that Mike said, so the question goes on to, you know, that he wants to advance the ball at the start of the timeout, to the front court. Do we need to go tell the opposing coach immediately or wait until the end of the timeout? But I think he answered that with, if we follow that sort of protocol that you just went through. I think that's excellent.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to depend on if you're aware that the other team has heard that. I mean, as a courtesy, you may remind them that you're going to go back and ask the coach at the end of the timeout where he wants to throw in.
Okay.
And classically, Dave, what we see is we see assistant coaches that want to give the answer really
Exactly.
fast. I
Yeah.
think they want to earn their $11.44 for their evening of assistant coach and address that. There was a funny play in Managua where the assistant coach of a team that maybe didn't do so well, but was from one of the world powerhouses that actually indicated before the timeout. And the head coach actually grabbed that assistant coach and forcefully forced him into a chair and said, I will make the decision, and I will make the decision at the end of the timeout.
There you go.
So he understood the rule.
Yeah, so if everybody can just, like, if we can get everybody on the same page here with the protocol and sort of the mechanic of how we ask for that timeout, you know what, that is, that will clear up a lot of these questions and a lot of things that we need to take care of during that time.
Yeah. Dave, I'm just going to touch on
Yep.
this sort of last item and the pass off. And one of the protocols that was introduced last year was a new protocol, which was that we could have both a foul or violation and a fake on the same play. And the fake can either be on the player who fouls or or the player who was fouled. And so the example here was we could have classically a block charge play where we could have a charge that is 100% correct, but the player who is charged into embellishes, exaggerates, theatrically throws themselves to the floor. And our previous protocol was either the fake or the foul. And we found that that was patently unfair because if it is a charging foul, it should be called as a charging foul. But that doesn't give the player that was charged into the right to exaggerate that contact, to be theatrical, to bring emotion to the game where it doesn't warrant itself. So we can have both a foul for the charge and a fake on the player who embellishes. The other place that we see it is very much in the second example, or the example that's on here. So B1 fouls dribbler A1, striking the player's arm when reaching for the ball. So a foul on B1. But A1 snaps their head back when the contact is only on the arm. In this case, the referee shall call a foul on B1 and issue a fake a foul warning on A1 for the head snap. And this is probably the most common example we see.
I was going to say
And
exactly.
and and it's taken some time, but slowly around the world, we're starting to address this. And there are some leagues around the world where the dribbler head snap is starting to disappear because this has been taken care of. And really, if we're refereeing the game, we're calling the fouls that we need to call. We can probably eliminate this, but I think we need to ensure that we address this, and we're not afraid to have a foul and a fake on the same play. we're not looking for this to occur many times in a game. It may only happen once every 3 games, but it's not a once every 50 game situation. It's probably a little bit more aware of this. And as a referee, we need to have in our mind the potential of this happening. Not go looking for it, but be aware of it, and we'll start to recognize it. And interesting enough, when you sit on the sideline and sit in the stands, it's much easier to see this. And I would encourage people to do a little bit of that and start to become aware of it.
So really excellent question from one of the officials, Mike.
Yep.
How is the fake a foul registered on the game sheet?
It's actually not.
Okay.
It's something that's been looked at, but there is no spot that it is registered there. So the fake a foul warning, which is to lower the forearm twice, is something that the referee's crew must actually track themselves. And so if I'm in a 3-person crew and I'm working with you and John, and I have a fake a foul warning, if I address that fake a foul warning as per protocol, which is I say white 5, that's a fake a foul warning. Head coach, fake a foul warning on your player number 5. If I do that protocol correctly, undoubtedly yourself and John will both be aware that we've had a fake a foul warning, and the 3 of us will remember that fake a foul warning on that team.
Great. Some
Okay.
nuggets here. I'm telling you, clearing up a lot of things.
So this is the last item I'll address tonight, and then we can come off of share and go to actually some direct questions if we want. And it's very interesting. I've probably seen less basketball uh, at the start of sort of our university schedules kick off this weekend in many conferences in conference play, and we've had non-conference play to this point. I've probably seen less games in non-conference play than I ever have, but I have seen a number of officials who over the summer have picked this signal up and are handling it very well. And so if we have a situation where we call a foul on a player who's in the act of shooting, and after the foul is called, the player then passes the ball off. The player is no longer considered to be in the act of shooting, and the foul is not considered to be in the act of shooting because the player passed the ball off. And so we have the foul, and we have a new signal that just indicates the pass off. And I will give kudos to all of our CEBL officials across the country who did a very good job of this in the CEBL season last year and perhaps showed everybody what the signal was. And I thought I would introduce it just in case there's an exam question as to what the protocol is and what to do in this case. So Dave, I'm going to stop there. I'm going to come off share. I know we're about 50 minutes in, so
Yep.
we probably want to give people a
Yep,
chance.
absolutely. So, lots of questions on the advancement of the ball. I think I'm just going to try to interpret this question because it's not quite. If there's a foul in the backcourt and the team is getting the ball on the bench side, however, the defensive team calls a timeout. Okay.
Mhm.
And the offensive team still advance regardless of which team called the timeout?
No, it's only if the team that is getting the throw in calls the timeout and it's a backcourt throw in, then they have the option to advance. A timeout called by the opponent does not create that option.
Mhm. Okay. Um, so Dan, Dan, this is probably another presentation, but I'll ask Mike anyway, but it's a very good question. With regards to foul and a fake warning, is there
Yeah.
certain criteria that you give officials that would help adjudicate these plays properly? And like,
Yeah. So I may actually ask for Nadine's help if she's still on the line, if she can remember. But in one of the FIBA documents, I think it may actually be the IoT document. There's an excellent page and a half on fake a foul warnings and the signs of a fake. And it's really interesting language. Nadine, is that where it is in the IoT
I
document?
I believe it is.
Yeah, it's a section called fake a foul, and I'm making this up, but for whatever reason, I think it's section 4.2 in whatever document it's in. But it's a piece that gives some excellent guidelines for recognizing the signs of a fake, and and probably the first time you read it, you'll look at it and go, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But then when you actually watch a game, you start to see them. So there's some great guidelines on a block charge play, some great guidelines around a head snap, some great guidelines around exaggeration and things we look at. And we're not looking for subtle things. We're not looking for subtle things. We're looking for theatrical, looking for things where player is clearly trying to fool the referees or bring emotion to the game in an inappropriate way.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
So,
page 23,
oh, there you go.
2.13, fake a foul of the
There you go.
IoT.
I apologize on the numbers. I'm sure 4.2 is important somewhere, but thanks, Nadine.
Thank you, Nadine.
2.13 in the IoT document on
Yeah,
fake a file. It's very good language.
yeah. Thank you very much. Frank has a question. A final free throw that misses the ring in the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter. Uh, Team calls a timeout. What side?
Ah, either side in this case, unless it's obvious, unless it's obvious that the free throw is missed on one side of the court or the other, and I'm laughing at that because I can't imagine somebody it being obvious.
Okay.
So in that case, we would have a choice to go to either side.
Okay. You know what?
It
There's
is
something that
it's the one
happens.
play.
Yeah, something
Yeah,
that happens.
it can certainly happen. I
Mhm.
would I would really hate it if the opponent coach wanted to argue as to which side the throw-in should be on.
Okay. Okay. On another topic. Um, this year at OUA scores tables, are players' teams, uh, do they have foul markers and expected to use on there? Or stats on the score sheet board good enough?
Yeah, it would be wonderful
Yeah.
if we could find a way across Canada to get to. I'm sure many of you have seen in FIBA competitions a very simple stick on a stick protocol that
Mhm.
you could make in any shot class in about 5 minutes, where the team fouls are added, where there's a one that goes on first for the first one, then a two, a three, a four, and then a five. And I think this is Jamie Clegg has says sounds like a high school woodwork project. I'm sure there are enough teachers on this call or people that work in schools that if you could start making a few of them, or we have one of our enterprising individuals across the country supplying these, it would really help us. Do I honestly think that we'll get quick to there? No, I don't think so.
Okay. So, with all due respect to some of the questions in the chat, we're just gonna focus on, the things that we covered today, because I think some of the questions we can go down a rabbit hole, just on the carry and things like that. So we'll just focus on those questions today. Perhaps if you want to maybe send an email on that, we'll go from there.
Yeah,
Uh,
send the email to Dave and let him filter
Yeah,
filter
I,
the.
I will
So
filter those out for
I
sure.
I
Okay.
get I get plenty.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. All right. Do we have any more questions on the material that we covered today? John McFarland has put it in the chat a few times that our CBOC FIBA exam opens on October 27th and closes on November 28th. And you'll be able to access it on Game Plan. Currently, Game Plan is going through just a revamp on how it looks. I'm not sure it will be up by the time that the exam is on, so it's gonna be the same process as last year. Okay, so there is a question, just Mike. So we talk
Yep.
about the pass off. We've talked about that sort of. In the case of a foul against a player in the act of shooting, where the shooter then passes instead of shooting, would it still be a non-shooting foul against the offending player?
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
So we've made a decision that there's a foul. He may well have been in the act of shooting when he was fouled, but if the player then passes the ball off, that I'll use the word deletes the fact that it was in the act of shooting and the foul is now a foul not in the act of shooting.
Okay. All right.
So,
Mhm.
so Dave, just what I would encourage everybody in preparing for the exam, I think the Aubrey, the the interpretations is a good place to start, and go slow with the questions. There's no rush when you're writing the exam. The we've come a long way from a place 20 or 30 years ago where interpreters from the various provinces would try and come up with a question or two that was designed to fool people. And I think we've, thanks to some good work by people like Scott Critch and his committee, we've gotten to a place where the questions on the exam are certainly fair and reasonable and generally represent more consistent game situations. And I don't think we're ever going to get to a place to perfect, but they're certainly fair if we just take our time and read the question, and look for the key pieces of the rules that are being explored in the question.
Absolutely. Hey, one last question, Mike, and this is a really good one. Um, so after the coach indicates the advancement of the ball at the end of the timeout, what are the specific mechanics?
So the by rule, the coach is supposed to say front court throw in and point in the direction of the sideline it's supposed to be. But the referee at that point would also verbally just go, "We're going front court opposite the table. We're going front court table side." And that communication is certainly for the 10 players on the floor, but it's also for his partners.
Right. Now, does the crew chief blow their whistle?
There's no need to blow the whistle in that particular situation. What I'm always going to say in my language is you can't make a dead ball deader. And so what the whistle does is create a dead ball. And in this case, the ball is dead. There may be a situation, congratulations to the officials that are working in front of 18,000 rabid fans who are going crazy, and there's so much noise in the building that nobody can hear. So blowing the whistle may be a reasonable thing to do. But on 99.97% of our games across the country, there's not going to be that level of noise where there's any need to blow the whistle if we're using our voice properly.
Absolutely. Okay. So, I think that's it. There's a couple of questions in the chat that I'll pull out and maybe have a look at. And I would just like to thank you for your time, Mike, putting that together. I think you really cleared up a lot of things, just on a 60-minute call. I think it was helpful to the officials that are on here, and hopefully everybody had a listen. Again, I will post the recording on Game Plan. Okay, it'll be under links, right? That's where the recording will be. But again, Mike, Nadine, John, I can't thank you enough for all the work that you do, and thank you everyone for taking the time to be on this call. I think we learned some basketball things today, so I appreciate you all.
Have a good night, folks.
Have a good night. Lots of thank yous in the,
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you, thank you.
Stop recording, Mr.
Thank you.
oh yeah, stop recording. Got it.